Close your eyes and imagine an apartment building where lives intersect in unexpected ways. Tonight, we follow Jamie, who's about to discover that sometimes the most meaningful connections are happening right across the hall. Jamie had been living in apartment 4A for exactly 3 months when everything changed. It was a Thursday evening in late autumn, and Jamie was coming home from work, arms full of groceries, fumbling for keys, when the sound of voices echoed through the hallway. The apartment across the hall, for B, had been empty since Jamie moved in. The landlord mentioned it was being renovated, new floors, updated kitchen, fresh paint. But now, clearly, someone was moving in. Jamie paused at the door, listening. 2 voices, maybe 3, the sound of furniture scraping across floors, footsteps going back and forth. The normal chaos of moving day. Jamie smiled, remembering the exhaustion of moving into 4A just months ago, and decided to give the new neighbor some space. Moving was stressful enough without strangers introducing themselves. Inside apartment 4A, Jamie put away the groceries and tried not to think about the sounds from across the hall. But it was impossible to ignore completely. The walls in these old buildings were thin, not terribly thin, but thin enough. Jamie could hear the muffled sounds of life happening just beyond the wall, boxes being opened, instructions being called out, eventually the sound of a door closing and silence. The new neighbor had arrived. Jamie didn't meet the neighbor that night, or the next day, or even that weekend. Their schedules didn't align. Jamie would leave for work early and hear silence across the hall. Jamie would return in the evening and hear only the faint sounds of someone moving around, living their life, existing in parallel. It was strange, Jamie thought, how you could live so close to someone and never actually see them. Just 15 feet separated their front doors, but it might as well have been miles. Then, one evening about a week after the move-in, Jamie was coming home late after dinner with friends. It was after 10, and the hallway was dim, lit only by the old brass sconces that gave off a warm, amber glow. And there, at the door to 4B, was the neighbor. She was young, maybe Jamie's age, maybe a bit younger, with dark curly hair pulled into a messy bun and paint-stained overalls. She was struggling with multiple canvas paintings, trying to balance them while unlocking her door, and clearly losing the battle. "Need a hand?" Jamie asked, and the woman jumped slightly, startled. "Oh, yes, actually, that would be amazing," she said, her voice warm and slightly breathless. "I'm Nora, by the way. Just moved in across from you." "Jamie, welcome to the building." Jamie took 2 of the canvases while Nora unlocked her door. "Thank you so much." "I'm an artist, obviously," Nora laughed, gesturing at her paint-covered clothes. "Just picked these up from a gallery. They didn't sell, which is fine, I love them anyway." Jamie helped carry the paintings inside, catching a glimpse of apartment 4B. It was the same layout as Jamie's, but felt completely different. Where Jamie's apartment was minimalist and organized, Nora's was an explosion of color and creativity. Paintings leaned against walls, art supplies covered the kitchen counter, plants hung from every conceivable spot. "It's a mess, I know," Nora said, sounding slightly embarrassed. "I'm still getting organized." "It's perfect," Jamie said honestly. "It looks lived in." "Mine looks like a hotel room." Nora smiled, and Jamie noticed she had a beautiful smile, the kind that made her whole face light up. "Well, thanks for the help. I owe you one." "Anytime. We're neighbors now." And with that simple exchange, something shifted in the building. Over the next few weeks, Jamie and Nora developed a gentle rhythm of neighborly interaction. Nothing dramatic, just small moments that made the apartment building feel less like a collection of isolated boxes and more like a community of 2. Sometimes Jamie would hear Nora's music through the wall, indie folk that was actually pleasant, not too loud, just present. Jamie started recognizing songs, could predict when Nora was painting based on the music choices. Upbeat music meant she was working on something new. Quiet piano meant she was stuck or tired. One evening, Jamie came home to find a small wrapped package outside the door of 4A. Inside was a tiny watercolor painting, no bigger than a postcard, of the view from their hallway window. A note was attached in neat handwriting. "Thanks again for helping with the paintings. Thought you might like something to make your walls less hotel-like. Nora." Jamie immediately hung it by the kitchen window, where the morning light would hit it. It was the first piece of art Jamie had ever owned, and it made the apartment feel instantly more like home. A few days later, Jamie baked banana bread, making extra and leaving a loaf outside Nora's door with a simple note, "Thanks for the painting. Hope you like banana bread." The next morning, Jamie found Nora's door slightly ajar and voices inside. Peeking in while passing, Jamie saw Nora with an older woman, probably her mother, both laughing over something. The banana bread was on the counter, partially eaten. It felt good to know something Jamie made was being enjoyed. As autumn turned to winter, Jamie became more attuned to the sounds from apartment 4B. Not in an intrusive way, but in the way you become aware of familiar music or the sound of rain. It was comforting, actually, knowing someone else was there, living their life in parallel. Some nights, Jamie could hear Nora on the phone, her voice rising and falling in animated conversation. Sometimes there was laughter. Sometimes there were long silences, the kind that happen during video calls when you're just existing with someone across the distance. Other nights were quieter. Jamie could hear the soft sounds of Nora moving around, making tea probably, or cleaning brushes, or just existing in her space. These sounds became oddly soothing, a reminder that Jamie wasn't alone in the building, that life was happening just beyond the wall. One particularly cold December night, Jamie was up late working on a project for work, stressed and tired. Around midnight, there was a soft knock on the door. Jamie opened it to find Nora standing there in pajamas and a thick cardigan, holding 2 mugs of hot chocolate. "I heard you pacing," she said simply. "Thought you might need this." "I couldn't sleep either, too much coffee this afternoon." They sat in Jamie's living room, on opposite ends of the couch, both wrapped in blankets, sipping hot chocolate and talking in quiet voices. Nora talked about a gallery rejection she'd received that day. Jamie talked about the project stress. Neither offered solutions, just presence and understanding. "This is nice," Nora said eventually. "Having someone who understands that sometimes you're just up at midnight, you know?" "Yeah," Jamie agreed. "It is nice." When Nora left an hour later, Jamie felt calmer, centered in a way that had nothing to do with solving the work problem and everything to do with human connection. Winter deepened, and the building seemed to contract with the cold. Jamie and Nora's apartments became warm bubbles of light and life in the dark season. They saw each other more frequently now, quick conversations in the hallway, shared meals occasionally, borrowed eggs and borrowed time. Jamie learned that Nora was a night owl, that her best work happened after 10 p.m. when the world was quiet. Nora learned that Jamie was an early riser who loved the quiet morning hours before the city woke up. Despite their different rhythms, they found ways to sync up. Weekend brunches became a semi-regular thing. Nora would come over with fresh pastries from the bakery downstairs. Jamie would make coffee and eggs. They'd sit at Jamie's small table by the window and watch the neighborhood wake up, talking about everything and nothing. One Saturday, Nora invited Jamie over to see her latest work. The apartment was transformed. She'd been preparing for a show, and paintings covered every wall. They were beautiful, abstract pieces that seemed to capture emotion more than form, all blues and greens with splashes of gold. "This one," Nora said, pointing to a large canvas, "I painted the night we had hot chocolate. I couldn't sleep after, felt too inspired. It's about connection, I think. About finding your people in unexpected places." Jamie looked at the painting for a long time, seeing something in it that felt true and real. "I love it." "It's yours if you want it," Nora said. "When the show is over. I want you to have it." "I couldn't." "You can. You already have it, actually. I painted it for you." In January, a massive snowstorm hit the city. The kind that shut everything down, that turned the world white and quiet and slow. Jamie and Nora were both snowed in, work canceled, plans abandoned, nothing to do but watch the snow fall. Around noon, Nora knocked on Jamie's door. "Want to build a blanket fort and watch old movies? I have popcorn." They spent the entire afternoon in Jamie's living room, having constructed an elaborate fort using couch cushions, blankets, and chairs. Inside their fabric cave, lit by string lights Nora had brought over, they watched 3 movies back to back, eating popcorn and drinking tea and feeling like kids again. Between movies, during a particularly heavy snowfall, they sat in comfortable silence, just watching the white world outside the window. "I'm really glad you moved in across the hall," Jamie said quietly. "Me too," Nora replied. "I was worried about being lonely in a new place. But I'm not. Not at all. Neither am I. Not anymore." The snow continued to fall, and inside their blanket fort, 2 neighbors who had become friends sat together in peaceful contentment, grateful for the shared wall that had brought them together. Months passed. Winter gave way to spring, and with it came change. Nora got accepted to an artist residency program, 3 months in another city. It was an amazing opportunity. She was thrilled, but also nervous about leaving. "You'll be fine," Jamie assured her over their last brunch before she left. "And I'll be here when you get back. Will you take care of my plants?" Nora asked. "I know it's a lot to ask." "Of course. I have a key. I'll check on them every few days. And I'll send you pictures so you know they're alive." The day Nora left, the building felt different. Quieter. Emptier. Jamie kept up the routine, going into 4B twice a week to water plants, collecting mail, making sure everything was okay. Being in Nora's space without her there felt strange, but also intimate, like being trusted with something precious. They texted regularly and video called once a week. Nora shared photos of her work, of the new city, of the other artists. Jamie shared updates about the neighborhood, about the plants, all thriving, about the small moments Nora was missing. "I miss the shared wall," Nora said during one call. "I miss knowing you're right there. It's too quiet here." "I miss it too," Jamie admitted. "I miss hearing your music. I miss our random midnight talks." 2 more months, Nora said. "Then I'm home." When Nora finally returned in early summer, Jamie heard her arrive. The sound of keys in the lock across the hall, the familiar rhythm of someone coming home. Jamie waited exactly 30 seconds before knocking on 4B's door. Nora opened it and immediately pulled Jamie into a hug. "I'm home. Welcome back. I have banana bread waiting for you." They spent the evening catching up properly, Nora showing photographs and sketches from her residency, Jamie sharing all the small neighborhood dramas Nora had missed. It felt like no time had passed at all, and also like they'd been apart for years. "I learned something while I was gone," Nora said as the evening wound down. "About what home means. It's not just a place. It's the people in it. And you're part of my home now. Apartment 4B isn't home because of the space. It's home because you're across the hall." Jamie felt something warm bloom in their chest. "Same. This building became home when you moved in." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind only possible between people who truly understand each other. As night falls over the apartment building, Jamie returns to 4A while Nora settles back into 4B. But everything feels different now, better, more complete. The shared wall between them isn't a barrier but a connection, reminder that they're not alone. Jamie can hear Nora moving around, unpacking, probably reorganizing her art supplies. The sounds are familiar and comforting, like a favorite song. In bed that night, Jamie reflects on how much has changed in less than a year. This building that once felt isolating and anonymous has become a home, all because someone moved in across the hall and became more than a neighbor. Sometimes the most important people enter our lives quietly, through ordinary moments and small gestures. Sometimes home isn't where you grew up or where you've lived the longest. Sometimes home is wherever the people who understand you happen to be. And so the building settles into its nighttime rhythm. In apartment 4A, Jamie drifts toward sleep, comforted by the soft sounds of life from 4B. In apartment 4B, Nora does the same, grateful to be back, grateful for the shared wall and the friend beyond it. This is what it means to find your people. Not through grand gestures or dramatic moments, but through consistent small kindnesses, through showing up, through being present. Through hot chocolate at midnight and borrowed eggs and paintings given as gifts. The city continues around them, millions of people living separate lives in separate spaces. But here, in this old building with thin walls and creaky floors, two people have found something rare and valuable. They've found connection. They've found belonging. They've found home. Rest now. Know that somewhere, your people are waiting to be found. Maybe they're closer than you think. Maybe they're just across the hall, waiting for you to say hello, to offer help, to show up as yourself. Connection is always possible. Home is always waiting to be built. And sometimes, the best stories start with the simplest words. Need a hand. Sleep well. Tomorrow holds infinite possibilities for connection, for friendship, for finding your people. But tonight, rest in the knowledge that you're never as alone as you think. Your neighbor might be exactly who you need. Good night.